Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution.
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 You want a revolution?
You say you want a revolution?
Revolution. The revolution.
It's going on right now.
Welcome to The Revolution, the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we ask today's most successful entrepreneurs to share the tools and strategies they use to build relationships and connections to grow their revenue. Now, your host for The Revolution, John Corcoran.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I am the host of this show, and it's such a privilege every week to talk to smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs of all kinds of companies, ranging from take a look at my recent interview with the original CEO and co-founder of Netflix. We've had Activation Blizzard, LendingTree, OpenTable, Act Software, so many more. I'm also the co-founder of Rise25, where we help connect B2B business owners to their ideal prospects. And today's guest is Jeffrey Feldberg. He is the co-founder and CEO of Deep Wealth, which is a company that helps business owners to learn how to prepare to exit their business for maximum value. And boy, does he have credibility in this area. He actually created this 90-day Deep Wealth experience that helps people through that preparation process, but it's all based on this 9-step roadmap that he created for his own 9-figure exit. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. His first company, which was he created after he graduated from an MBA program, was an e-learning company. And interestingly, the first offer was to sell it for 7 figures. 2 years later, he ends up selling it for 9 figures. So amazing to hear how that evolves. So we'll dive into that. But first, this episode is brought to you by Rise25, where we help B2B businesses with get clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships with done-for-you podcasts and content marketing. If you've ever been curious about how to do that, contact us. Go to rise25media.com, or you can email us at support@rise25media.com. All right, Jeffrey, pleasure to have you here. And I want to ask you, as I ask a lot of my guests, were you one of these kids who was just out there hustling, working hard? You knew you wanted to make a buck from a young age, doing a lemonade stand on your parents' lawn on the weekends, or were you someone who got into entrepreneurship a little bit later?
Hi, John. Firstly, thank you so much for having me on the show, and for the listeners, it's terrific and an honor to be here. So, John, in answer to your question, looking back, growing up as just a young kid, I loved business. I would just dream of the day when I would have my own business. I remember my father, I was probably only 10 or 11, and my father was just one of those guys who would buy everything from an infomercial that he happened to see. And one morning, the next morning, he said, "Jeffrey, I found this really good book for you. I think you're going to like it." And it ended up being Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill. It was this whole package that he had bought, and that just got me on my way. So through high school, I got involved in selling water purifiers through some multi-level marketing, created a video production company through high school and into early university, but always fascinated about business, and because I just love people and helping people. And really, when you think about it, being a business owner, you're solving problems, you're helping people get enough people get what they want. And eventually through that process, you can get what you want. And so to answer your question, John, I was just always fascinated with business.
And I have to hear about this water filtration business. Was it just a wild success right from the get-go?
Was it a wild success? I cut my teeth on that, and just my family really loved me, and my friends of the family who would see me do these demonstrations. And just a quick story. I remember one time I was at a neighbor's house and I was demonstrating. And I always knew at this, and it didn't come naturally to me. And, kids, they don't have any filter. So one of the kids was there and he said, "Daddy, why is Jeffrey's head so wet with water?" And I was just, sweating and, giving these presentations. So, but it taught me how to have conversations, how to tell stories, and what business was really all about.
That's amazing. Did other than your father buying things off of infomercials, was he a mentor to you, or were there other members of the family or the neighborhood that you learned from at a young age? Or is it you just kind of like being drawn to it and figuring it out as you go along and reading it all from books?
I'm really fortunate. I had two superheroes, two mentors for me in business. My father and my father's brother, my uncle, they were entrepreneurs. And look, for myself, first generation, I came from a family of immigrants. Things were not easy when they came to this country, and they really sacrificed everything for myself, my family, my cousins, everyone to do that. But I had both of them. Really, where I am today, I stand literally on the shoulders of giants because of these two men who helped guide me, inspire me, instill values in me, of working hard, doing the right thing, helping people to make a difference.
Wow. All right. So take me back to 1995. You're graduating, you get your MBA, and you're graduating, and you go, and did you immediately decide that you're going to start a company? Or because a lot of people walk out of an MBA program, they go and work in the corporate world, but take me back to what your time horizon and your state of mind was like at that time.
For sure. So it's 1 week before graduation in my MBA program. And I'm still a kid. I was young when I got into the MBA program. I was one of the youngest kids in the program, or people in the program.
It looks like you went straight. Did you went straight from college?
I went straight from undergrad into the MBA program. And I mean, that's a whole other story, because originally I wasn't in the program. I called up the director and said, "Hey, before you say no, look me in the eye." This came from the multi-level marketing. There you go. Tying everything in, John. Look me in the eye before you say no. Have that conversation with me. And so she
did. Go down? You go down and meet with the person?
I called her up. Her name was Leela. I said, "Leela, I haven't heard from you, and I get the sense that no news is not good news in this case. And September's approaching. I suspect I'm probably not on the list. I can't write all those GMATs and those kinds of tests. My mind doesn't think like that. I'm a great person, smart guy, just not in that area. I'll be at the bottom of the list for that. But meet me, see what I'm all about, and then make your decision." So thankfully, she was curious, took me up on the offer, and afterwards she said, "Jeffrey, I just saw a fire in your belly, and I decided to give you a chance and admit you into the program."
That's amazing.
And so got into the program, but again, all my contemporaries there had much more experience. They were in the corporate world, and I was going through. And in the program itself, the school, when I graduated the very next year, the School of Business moved into a brand new facility. They had someone who donated a tremendous amount of capital to make that happen, but I didn't have that. And that was the best thing, because I was in this old, dilapidated building. There was no technology. And so I created a system for myself and my study group that literally took us from the worst group to the best group in the program. We went from meeting every day, every evening, weekends, weeknights, arguing, not getting along, thinking about dropping out of the program, to becoming the best group, getting straight A's, meeting only when we needed to meet. And I felt guilty because we were doing so well with that. I said, "You know what? I need to share this with everyone else in the program." And so I shared it with everyone in the program, and it became this renegade student-run system in the School of Management. And it worked really, really well. But sometimes you don't see the trees from the forest. And it's a week before graduation. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I do know I'm not a corporate guy, not happening. And I'm kind of thinking, okay, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? From my father, from my uncle, I had these values instilled in me of be your own person, do your own thing. Don't depend on others if you don't need to or don't have to. And so right before graduation, I said, "Hey, Jeffrey, if you could help the business school here, why not help other business schools? You already have a working model." And so I created EMBANET, which stood for Electronic MBA Network. And for all you listeners out there, I got to tell you, that was not an easy decision. I mean, you hear online learning and internet and everything else today. Back then in 1995, and John, I'm dating myself a little bit here, it was dial-up modems. The internet was not popular. If you said, "I'm going on the web," people say, "What? A spider's web? What are you talking about?" So it was. I mean,
literally at this time, I was in college at the time, and fall of '94 was when I got my first email address. I'm on campus, have dial-up internet access. I remember going to Yahoo and how it was all text-based, and it was slow as heck. So I can't imagine creating a website at that point in time.
It was, people thought I was crazy. And I made a bet the farm decision at the time with the company because I decided to be internet based only. So no dial-up modems, no racks of, phone lines and modems or anything else. It was internet only. But the truth is, John, looking back, I can honestly say this. I had no business being in business. I mean, I was failing in business in the early years of Embanet. I had no business experience. I had no money. I had no team. Here I was living out of my parents' attic and just struggling. All my friends were signing these very lucrative contracts, getting all these bonuses. Here I was not making really ends meet, living at home with mom and dad, seeing my friends go on vacations, buy houses, get new cars. Everyone thought I was crazy, but I had this passion and I had this vision and just loved doing what I was doing. It was figuratively the old thing, you love so much what you're doing that you'd write the check to do it. Well, I was writing the check to do it. But my grit and my passion kept me in the game long enough to get through those failures, to figure things out. And it took 2 years or so to really start getting, in a small way, some traction that would be built one day on top of the other, to eventually start to become successful.
What was the secret that you uncovered when you were in your MBA program that you brought to Embanet?
So the secret that I brought to Embanet was really by business school students for business school students, by someone in the community for anyone who's in the MBA community. It just made everyone's life easier as a faculty member, as a student, as an administrator, as a school, because it was very, very specific. And it was both a blessing and a curse. So lesson number one that I learned afterwards, the company name originally was E.MBA, space NET for Electronic MBA Network, because a professor said, "Hey, Jeffrey, you're on this internet. It's kind of cool. Wouldn't it be neat if you put a dot in it?" worst thing I could have done. It just confused everyone.
Yeah.
But because we were so focused, eventually, and we ended up focusing in the executive MBA market, but we outgrew that market really quickly. And so what do? You have a brand name. Everyone knows you at that. I don't have money to rebrand. And so you just kind of jumble everything up. So it just became Embanet. You don't talk about what it really stood for and lessons learned. And then we went out to a broader market.
So what are some of the other subjects that you started teaching people about then, or creating lessons on?
Well, so Embanet went through 2 phases. So I'll call it Embanet 1 and Embanet 2. Where Embanet 1 was successful, so Embanet 1 was all about hosting and technical support and course conversion. The problem that we solved was for later on continuing education programs. Out of every 10 students that they enrolled, maybe 3 of them, 4 of them would complete the course or the program. So can you imagine you bring on 10 customers, all that marketing dollars, all the onboarding that you're doing, and 7 of those customers leave you partway through? We solved that. So of the 10 students in this case that were coming on board, they would keep 8 or 9 of them. So we were an instant hit with them because of we just knew how to do things that the schools didn't know how to do in terms of the customer service and the whole back end and making sure the system stayed up and running. But for your listeners, here's the thing. I'm a geeky technical guy, but I'm not a programmer. I'm a power user, if you will. I don't do programming, never had an interest to do programming.
And there's no Fiverr, there's no Upwork at that time.
There was none of that. So what I did, and again, this was another blessing in disguise, instead of spending all my time and money on building out a technology which only becomes obsolete tomorrow when someone else puts a little bit of a zig when you had a zag, I ended up starting with licensing out one learning management system. But when all was said and done, I had, at the end of the day, I was like a Switzerland. I had 7 different learning management systems. So it's very hard for a school to say no to us because, okay, well, if the business school wants to work with Embanet, but the rest of the school was on a learning system, I had the learning system. So technology to me became a commodity. It's whatever you want. And the customers liked that because they knew technology changes. And they knew that if something goes out of business tomorrow, Embanet is still there. And there's all these other learning management systems, or if something new comes onto the scene, that we would have that. And so it was taking what would be perceived to be a negative. You don't own the technology, you don't own the IP, and turning it into a positive. Well, Why would I want to own the technology and the IP when that's not the value?
So were your customers the end consumers, or was it you were selling to MBA programs, or both?
So we were with MBANet 1, and we'll get to MBANet 2 in a moment, but for MBANet 1, our messaging and our customer was the dean of the business school or the director of the MBA program. That's who we would work with. And then through them, they would bring on all of the students or the executive MBA students. So that's who we were interfacing with. So that was the first part of our formula, was to help keep the seats filled. The university filled the seats, we would keep the seats filled. MBANet 2 came about because I was speaking with actually one of my first customers, just on a regular customer service call, and his name was also John. And I said, "Hey, John, haven't spoken to you in a short while, and this is my favorite question. What's keeping you up at nights these days when it comes to your business?" I said, "Jeffrey, I got to tell you, I'm so glad you asked. I have a board meeting coming up about this very topic. I can't fill the seats. My competition is setting up shop locally. You got this thing called the internet. You got video conferencing. My class size, the incoming class size, has diminished." I said, "John, leave that with me. Let me see what I can do." We weren't a marketing company, John. We were a technical support, a hosting, really more of a student support type of company. And what I thought would take a few weeks took 2 years. But eventually we figured out how to put MBANet 1 out of business with MBANet 2. If you're going to go out of business, isn't it better to be put out of business by yourself and you can do it bigger and better? So we expanded our solution. Okay, we will help you fill the seats. We will keep the seats filled. And so we did all the marketing to students now in the name of the university, worked with the faculty to take all their content and put that on the system. So really, we were an end-to-end solution. And we took all the risk away. Here's the game changer for us. When I looked at what was there, and I, for all the listeners, this is my favorite radio station. And by the way, this is your customer's favorite radio station. It's called WII.FM, the What's in It for Me radio station. So when I looked at the What's in It for Me from my customer's point of view, what I realized was they didn't really have the money to do marketing in the right way. They didn't have the staff or the talent to do marketing in the right way. And I said, okay, how can I take the no's and turn them into yeses? Well, let me take the risk off the table. So what differentiated MBANet 2, we did revenue sharing. So if you were a university, I say, "John, tell you what, there's no cost to you. All the marketing, all the copy, all the advertising, the people at the other end of the phone who are going to be representing you that you'll approve, who are going to be enrolling the students, all the course development, all the training of the faculty, all the delivery of the courses, it's not going to cost you a dime. In fact, from the very first student that enrolls, you'll be profitable." And they said, "Okay, great. That's good for me. What's your ask, Jeffrey?" And I said, "Well, we need an exclusive 10-year agreement and we need to do revenue sharing so we can recoup our investments." And they did that. Because the problem that we were solving, they were better off. It was more painful for them not to go with us than to go with us, even though it was unheard of, for Vanderbilt University or George Washington University, Boston University, to have these 10-year exclusive contracts. And so that really is what created a market disruption, created an industry, just took it to the next level. And for me, we weren't a technology company. We weren't a student company. We weren't anything other than our huge, this is what got everyone out of bed. We changed the social fabric of society one e-learner at a time. Because if you have an opportunity from a single mom to a Fortune 10 president, to someone who's a high-ranking government official, and everyone else in between, they were bettering their lives through education, making it better for the people that were in their lives or the people that reported to them. And so that was our anthem. That was our mission of how we were going to change the world.
Take me back to when you were first launching the business. Who did you turn to for knowledge, for mentorship? There weren't many internet companies at all around, period. But was there anyone who took you under your wing in the first couple of years, or that you got guidance from?
I had two very different sets of mentors. So some of my mentors were Richard Branson, Bill Gates, Dale Carnegie, and the list goes on and on. And you may say, well, Jeffrey, how'd you meet those people? What's going on with that? What was your connection? It's called books and biographies and autobiographies. To take someone's life, 30 years, 50 years that they're writing about and distill that in a few hours. I mean, that was huge for me. And then the other thing that I did was early on, I just learned to check my ego at the door. And I would ask people for help. Hey, what do you think about this? Here's what I'm trying to do. I'm not quite sure how to do it. What do you think? And whether it was even prospective customers and now they're problem solving with you, or just, my heart beating and really nervous calling somebody up who's successful, read about you, heard about you. Here's what I'm doing. Do you have any suggestions? And sometimes the doors close, and a lot of times most people are good people and they want to help. So along the way, I had mentors, every step of the way who wanted to help this young kid who had these questions and was open to taking suggestions and implementing those.
And then I picture you, young kid, 20, whatever, 4 or 5 years old, just graduated from the MBA program and calling up these deans of these MBA programs around North America to convince them for you to serve them in a client capacity. With this new unproven thing called the internet. I'm sure they had a million questions about, well, isn't that going to undermine what we're doing and all kinds of different things. So what was that like? How did you get through to them?
Well, it's really a mindset on both sides. So firstly, when I came in and they saw me as this young kid, I think that disarmed them. I mean, the joke was, Jeffrey, when did you get out of high school? and there's even, we even joked internally, maybe I should get some glasses just to, have me look a little bit older than what I was with the clear lenses. Exactly. I don't need a prescription, but, have something there. But what I learned over time, and this actually, John, goes back to my multi-level marketing days, storytelling. Now, it can't be fiction. You need to tell a story that's based in truth and facts. But once I could get in the door and get their attention, if I can, get 10 minutes, 30 minutes. I remember my initial phone call would be, John, if you're the dean, hey, John, so great to speak with you. I want to find out what you're doing with your online program. And I tell you what, how Domino's has a 30-minute guarantee? I have a 10-minute guarantee. If after 10 minutes you don't like what I'm saying, just hang up the phone and no egos here and enough said. And they say, okay, they would chuckle a little bit. Go ahead, Jeffrey. And I would just share a story, share their problems, let them know that I knew what their problems were. I would bring up that pain that they have. And through the story, show them that there could be a better way of doing this, that there is a solution that actually works to solve their problem. And I took myself and Embanet out of the story. It wasn't about us. It was all about them. I mean, after all, what's everyone's favorite word? It's their name. Everyone's name is their favorite word. It's all about other people. Everyone thinks, oh, everyone's looking at me. No one's looking at you. No one really cares. Everyone's thinking about themselves. So how can you help people get what they want and to find out what it is that they wanted for their program and to share with them, paint that picture, have them come on that imaginary ride of how it's going to help them and solve their problem.
And did you partner up with your classmates from law school? How did you figure out who would be good business partners? How did that relationship develop?
It was, these were just crazy times back then. This internet was such a wild west out there. And I don't blame them. My study group and even some of the people in the program, I mean, they had such good offers that for them to go with Jeffrey on this crazy unproven thing and this potential fad called the internet. And so God bless them. They went on with their careers and they went on to be successful in their own right with what they were doing. And it was just, going out and making things happen solo. And then at the time, my girlfriend at the time, who would later then become my wife, she came to my very first presentation. And it was, I had no idea about conferences, John, at the time. And so my business professor said, hey, Jeffrey, there's this conference going on. I know the organizer of all these business school deans. I can get you on. And I said, oh, great, terrific. And I think it was 3 or 4 days after graduation. And he said, Jeffrey, I got you on the very last day of the last presentation. And so in my naive mind back then, glass is always half full. I thought, amazing. You save the very last for the best, not realizing, not really having been to conferences before. They were grumpy. They were tired. These guys had it. They didn't want to hear about this kid with this thing called the internet. They wanted to leave the conference, get on with their weekend, get home, get back to their spouses, who knows what. And so I do my presentation, and in my mind, I built this up that there's going to be just a whole trampling of the desks and the chairs. Everyone's going to be lining up. Where do I sign up for this? So I finish, I give my pitch, I put it out there, leave nothing on the table. And John, it's silence. You could hear that proverbial pin drop, and they just walk out, not a single question. And so I'm leaving, and I'm heartbroken. I'm literally in tears. And my girlfriend, future wife at the time, and business partner, down the road, she said, Jeffrey, I saw your presentation, and look, I've been in sales all my life as well. I think you need some help. I was going to go to law school. Let me put that off, and let me help you for 6 months just to help get you going and get things happening from there. And that's really how things started. Very humble beginnings. It was really no beginning at all. Wow. If her name's Waleska, if not for Waleska back then, there may not have been an Embanet, quite openly. It was a challenging time back then.
So let's flash forward to the offer. You get an offer to buy it at a 7-figure valuation. It was I think I read that it was a 3 multiple or something like that at that point. So you've scaled it up. How big is the company at this point when you get this offer, and is it unsolicited? How's it come about?
So, it's funny. Success is a funny thing because we were failing day over day over day, and then eventually become successful. And with success come different challenges. And John, to your point, I get that proverbial knock at the door. A very, very smart and experienced, sophisticated buyer from a Fortune 10 company. And long story short, gives that 7-figure offer. By that time, the company was around 120 people, maybe 150 people, somewhere around there. And he knew that we didn't know what we didn't know. I had no idea. I was this busy guy building out the business. I have no idea about mergers and acquisitions. I mean, how do you master something, John, that you've never done before? It's a rhetorical question. Of course you can't. So he knew that we didn't know what we didn't know. And I would love to tell you that when I said no, and by the way, when the offer came and I shared it with close friends and family, they were jumping up and down and they were excited. Jeffrey, yes, you did it. All that living in the parents' attic and the struggle, it paid off. You're set. And when I said no, they said, wow, you are crazy. And in a different conversation, they'd be right. But in this situation, it was a little bit different. It was a gut feel. It didn't feel right for so many reasons. Couldn't quite pinpoint it, but it just didn't feel right. So when I said no to the 7-figure offer, I was saying yes to really mastering the art of preparation. How do you prepare for a liquidity event? I just knew I wasn't ready back then. Didn't know where or how. So for the next 2 years, I just dove into this crazy and wacky world called mergers and acquisitions. And investment bankers, M&A lawyers, strategists, buyers, sellers, I would speak to them. I would fly out to meet with them. I wanted to hear their stories. And on the business owner side, I really looked at 2 extremes. Business owners who hit it out of the park, like hugely successful, or business owners that really failed. Success and failure both leave clues. So for the people that were successful, I asked them what did they do to become successful. I didn't talk much. I listened and I took a lot of notes. And then I did a lot of what they did. And for the people that failed, ask the questions, well, why did you fail? but the same strategy. I didn't talk much, listened a lot, took a lot of notes, and I reverse engineered. I didn't do what they had done. And so I came up with a playbook, an exit playbook, all these different strategies. Today, it's all these fancy terms. We call it at Deep Wealth, the 9-step roadmap. Wasn't any step roadmap back then. A lot of it was these strategies, these stories, this intuition. It wasn't even 9 steps. Some of the areas that we failed in, we reverse engineered, and then those became the steps. But once I applied that, once we began implementing that and preparing the company, that's where the magic happened. And very naively, I just thought, okay, show up at the deal table, do some negotiations, and that's where the value of the company comes in. Wrong. It's a myth. Stop believing that. The value, the actual deal process, when you look at the deal value, it's like looking in a rear view mirror. Your deal value is directly proportionate to the quality and the depth of the preparation that you did years before, years going into the liquidity event. So the better prepared you are, the more likelihood of success and the higher the enterprise value.
But give me some specific examples of some ways in which you weren't prepared with that first offer and some changes that you made in that 2-year interim once you learned what you needed to do.
Sure. And, let me talk about some failures that were still, big lessons that made a difference. And we really, in the Deep Wealth experience and our 9-step roadmap, we really hone in on these things. These things are X factors. We call them X factors to insanely increase the value of your business. So for all you listeners out there, for all you business owners out there, here's lesson number 1 is a strategy. It's huge. It's everything. It's a very simple question. This is not a rhetorical question like my last one. And the question is, does your business run without you? And I don't care if you're 2 people or 200 people. It doesn't matter if you have a management team or you don't have a management team. If you were abducted by aliens, what would happen to your business? Would it still be there? And for most business owners, the answer is no. It doesn't run without me. My management team depends on me. They can't make the decision without me. I have a CEO or president, but I've really lockstepped them into doing things my way, or I don't even have a management team. I am the sun, the earth, the stars, the universe for my business. And that was one of the things that I learned early on. So we began to build out the management team. And, most business owners say, well, why do that? That it takes time, it costs money. You may have to get some recruiters involved. It's big salaries. It's a big burden on the company. Well, again, let's stop thinking about us and let's think about it from a future buyer's point of view. So your future buyer or investor, they're looking at you and they're going to say, okay, John, if I'm buying your company and I write you this big check, you have checked out mentally. I don't care what you say. You're not going to have control of the company. You're going to tell me you're still going to be there, but you're not. So, or maybe I don't even want you there. Maybe I have bigger plans that my own reasons. I want to do something different. So the question then becomes, who runs the company? Am I going to have a company? Is it going to survive without the founder or the business owner of the business? What's going on with that? When you have a management team in place, when your company runs without you, you give your future buyer confidence. Yes, the company's still going to be here. It's going to be a return on investment. The profits are going to continue. I can give my expertise, my additional capital, my people to help grow it, and I don't need to have the founder there. Plus, when your business runs without you, we now get to work on the business and not in the business, solve more problems, create more market disruptions. So we learned that early on. Where we failed in that, it was a partial success. We put in an amazing management team. We just didn't have enough seat time with the management team. They were there for about a year. I thought that would be enough, but the buyers looked at us and says, "What are you guys nuts? Show me 2 or 3 years, better yet 5 years, and then we'll put some confidence in the numbers that you're showing with what your management team has done." So does your business run without you is a huge one.
A key one. That's a key one.
That is a key one.
All right. I love that we wove in the 9 steps that you teach through Deep Wealth now, but I can't end this interview without asking you about the offer that ultimately led to the sale. So where did that come from? Did you hire a firm to represent you? And any other tips on why you got such a higher dollar amount 2 years later.
For sure. So what really made the difference? It's, there's that very so meaningful, it's insightful, that famous expression, you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So I'll modify that a little bit. When it comes to your liquidity event, your enterprise value, your business, your success is the average of really your advisory team. And all of you business owners out there, for the listeners, if you're thinking about having a liquidity event, but you're thinking on doing this on your own, you don't want to get, depending on the size of your business, either a broker or, for the larger businesses, an investment banker, because you think you'll save time and money. Don't get out of bed that day. Stay in bed. Don't even do it. It's a rounding error relative to the value that you'll get when you get the right investment banker, when you bring on board the right advisors. Of those 2 years that I had mentioned of in the whole exploratory stage, about 1.5 years was spent putting together the advisory team, finding the investment bankers, finding the people who are going to help us take this across the finish line. So in part, John, to answer your question, we had a stellar advisory team, a terrific investment banker and investment bank behind us that really helped us. They worked their magic, we worked our magic, and together we made magic together. And that was the beautiful thing about that. And that made a huge difference for us because we did what's called an auction. So I want you to think I'll just share a very quick example. You own a home, you want to sell the home. So let's say you make that decision right now. Do you just walk outside? You put a for sale by owner on your front yard. You don't do anything with the house. There's no painting. There's no trimming of the yard. You're not cleaning anything up in the house. You're anyone who's walking down the street. Hey, come on into my house and take a look. And the first offer that you get, you accept. It sounds crazy. But for most business owners, that's exactly what they do. They wait for that unsolicited offer. They wait for the competition to come along. Or instead, do you clean up the house, all the painting that you held back on, or cleaning things up, or decluttering and having a nicely manicured lawn and finding the right real estate agent? You do all those things. You take an assessment of where things are in the marketplace, and then you go out there and do that. You'll have a much better outcome. You'll get a higher dollar for your house. Why would it be any different for your business? And that was part of it. I'll share 2 statistics with you, and they're interesting. Of all the liquidity events that are out there, depending on who you speak to, somewhere between 80% to 90% of most liquidity events fail. So your time, your effort, your money, it's all for naught. You've wasted it. Why? Most times it's because the business owner wasn't prepared. And here's the shocker. Of the liquidity events that succeed, depending again on who you speak to, anywhere from 50% to 100% or more of the deal value is left on the deal table. In other words, your hard-earned money, maybe you know it, you probably don't, you're leaving it in your future buyer's pocket. And a very quick story on the podcast, we have different investment bankers come on, and they all say the same stories that they share, just different companies, different numbers. But here's one story. Investment banker came on and said, Jeffrey, we have a company. The company's in market right now. We're running an auction. The lowest bid is $11 million. The highest bid is $70 million. There's a $59 million spread. How many business owners would take that $11 million offer? Most business owners would, not knowing it's $59 million of their money, of their hard-earned money that they're leaving on the deal table. And that's deep wealth, because people say, Jeffrey, you got this 9-figure exit. You could be doing anything. Why are you doing this? Because it almost happened to me. I was a smidgen away from that fork in the road of looking at that 7-figure offer. If I can help other business owners really get what they've earned, get what they deserve, make that difference, help to pay it forward, and I enjoy doing that, then that's something that's really motivating for me. And I'll share a little secret with you, John, if you're open, just between you and me though, okay?
Yeah.
So the secret is, if I can help business owners get that much more during their liquidity event, after they've taken care of themselves and their family, their friends or loved ones financially, that they're all set, and they look at the capital that they have and they say, you know what, in my lifetime, I can't use all this capital. Why don't I set up a foundation where we can pick a social cause and make a difference? Or maybe I can make a donation to an existing social cause, or maybe I can find an area that's just being overlooked in a very real way. If deep wealth can help be a inspiration for people or be an enabler for people with all that extra capital that they earned because they did that much better on their liquidity event, then we're doing something right. And we're really at that point paying it forward. And like at Embonet's changing the social fabric of society, but this time one liquidity event at a time.
That's great. That's great. I love that you aren't just sitting on a beach drinking a Mai Tai somewhere, although you would be entitled to if you did do that, but that you are, pouring your passions into helping others. I want to wrap things up with the three questions that I enjoy asking. So first of all, I'm a passionate advocate of doing what we're doing right here, which is creating content and building relationships and sharing wisdom and sharing knowledge. And I love that you do that too. So for those who haven't started a podcast and see you doing it, see I doing it, see me doing it, what are some lessons that you've learned?
For me, it's been so humbling, both the podcast, I write articles, I put that out there. The opportunity of meeting people from all different walks of life. And like we're doing today, we're sharing, this is like a fireside chat. We're sharing stories, we're learning from each other, but we're taking it forward to other people. And John, what you're doing is amazing with the podcast of all of these success stories that you've had with the people that you're bringing onto the show for other people to learn from. I'll just say it. And I really believe this, the world goes round because of business owners. We're it, and as we're going through these very challenging times right now that the world has never seen before, it's the business owners, the people listening to this podcast. We're the ones that are going to make it happen. We are making the new reality. We're going to get us out of this into a better tomorrow.
Well, and also everyone's becoming a business owner these days because that's kind of the way everything's been moving towards freelancing and micro businesses.
Absolutely. And who's the world looking to help get this? It's not these large multinational companies. It's the smaller businesses. It's the gig economy. It's the mid-market businesses. We are the ones that are doing this. So when you create that content and you're taking some of your secret sauce, but other people's secret sauce, and you're sharing that out there, we're making the marketplace, we're increasing the marketplace, we're helping other people, we're just making it better for everyone. I'm a big believer in two things. It's really a life of service and paying it forward. And also when you help enough people get what they want first, then second, and not the other way around, eventually you'll get what you want. And so being that content creator for me has just been so fulfilling to really get important messages and stories and how-tos out there.
Great. All right. Second to last question. I'm a big fan of gratitude. So if you look around at your peers, your contemporaries, however you would define that, who do you respect? Who do you admire?
Gosh, there are so many people that I admire. I don't do this every day, all day, but I try most days to do it. And gratitude for me is at the core of so many things. How can you be successful in business if personally you don't get it right? So, pre-pandemic days when I'm out and about and I'm seeing someone from the proverbial street cleaner to a waiter or waitress, to the CEO or the president, I'm giving my gratitude for them for doing what they're doing. I think as business owners, as hard as it may be, in many ways we're privileged because there's so many other people that make what we do look like a cakewalk. They're working 2, 3, 4 jobs around the clock, not having much of a life. And for us to do what we do is a privilege. So I really look to be just grateful where I am right now for the people that I'm seeing, for the people that are in my life, for the good that they're doing and putting out. That's great.
And then last question. So even looking further back in your trajectory, maybe even to your childhood, we're pretending we're at an awards banquet like the Oscars or the Emmys. You're receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award for everything you've done up until this point. And in addition to family and friends, who do you think? Who are the colleagues, the friends, the investors, the business partners, the mentors, the coaches? Who would you acknowledge in your remarks?
Again, there would be so many people at a large level. Firstly, again, standing on the shoulders of just giants for me, my father, my uncle that I had mentioned, many of the titans of business that go back 100 years ago that we were talking about in their books. My team, because success is no one is an island unto him or herself, and the team that you have. I'm a person of faith. So, some people call it God or the universe, whatever you like to call that. That was huge for me in my early days through to this day. So for me, there is everywhere you look, there's a potential mentor. And get rid of titles, get rid of appearances, look into the heart of that person, look into the eyes of that person. Everyone has a story to share. Everyone has a purpose on this earth. It's our challenge to find that purpose and bring it to the world. And if you can find that for yourself and find that in other people, you're doing something wonderful.
That's great. Deepwealth.com is the website. The Sell My Business podcast is the name of the podcast. Where else can people go to connect with you and learn more about you, Jeffrey?
Deep Wealth is the best place. I'm on LinkedIn as well. I have my own personal blog, which is my little soapbox, where I'll have some of the articles that I'll have on Deep Wealth, but also there. That's jeffreyfeldberg.com. But deepwealth.com, that's where you'll find everything that's from the podcast to the articles to what you're doing to contacting us. And that's what I'd suggest.
Jeffrey, this has been a pleasure. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast with John Corcoran. Find out more at smartbusinessrevolution.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list and join the revolution.
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 And be listening for the next episode of the Smart Business Revolution podcast.